Embarrassment is the mirror you keep polishing. Not because others still see it, but because you refuse to put it down. What if the reflection you hate is just an illusion? Think back to that moment. You said something awkward. You tripped over a word. You made a mistake in front of people. For a few seconds, you felt the burn of eyes on you, the sting of laughter, the tightening in your chest. But here's the reality. They forgot. Their attention moved on. Their mind shifted back to their own lives, their own worries, their own flaws. Yet somehow, you didn't move on with them. You picked up that moment like a shard of broken glass and carried it into every tomorrow. And every time you replay it, you cut yourself again. The body doesn't know its memory. It reacts as though it's happening now. The face flushes. The stomach knots. The mind whispers, they must still be laughing. But who is laughing? Not them. Only the echo in your own head. This is the trap. The crowd has long gone, but you remain frozen in the spotlight of a stage that no longer exists. The joke ended years ago, but you are still holding the punchline. The world has turned the page, but you keep rereading the same paragraph, waiting for the word. Embarrassment feels eternal, but it isn't. It is a shadow cast by memory, and shadows are only sustained when the light of attention is fixed on them. Remove the light, and the shadow disappears. Which means this truth: the reflection you fear is not fixed. It is not solid. It is not permanent. It exists only because you keep polishing it, feeding it, keeping it alive. What if you stopped? What if you put the mirror down? What if the image of the awkward one, the foolish one, the one who messed up was just a phantom, and your insistence on looking at it is what makes it real? Because here's what embarrassment doesn't want you to realize. It's not them holding on to you. It's you holding on to it. And the moment you stop, the illusion shatters. The mind is not only a storyteller. It is also a projector. And once it records a scene, it has the power to play it back endlessly. That is what happens with embarrassment. A single slip of the tongue, a single stumble, a single awkward pause becomes trapped on film. And your mind insists on pressing play again, and again, and again, and again. Every replay is not harmless. Each one sends a signal through your nervous system. The brain pulls up the same emotions, the same tension, the same sensations as if the event were happening in real time. Your body tightens. Your face warms. Your heart pounds. Not because of what happened in that room years ago, but because of what you are replaying now. In this moment, quantum physics teaches us something powerful. Observation collapses possibility into reality. What you focus on becomes the experience that feels real. If you keep observing the embarrassing memory, you collapse it again and again into your present reality. Even though it lives only in the past, you resurrect it every time you shine your attention on it. This is why so many people carry invisible chains. They don't realize they are dragging moments that no longer exist into a life that should have been free. They wake up and remember a mistake from years ago. They walk into a new conversation but carry the weight of an old silence. They try to express themselves, but the projector in their head whispers, "Remember what happened last time." And suddenly, they shrink. Here lies the real trap. The replay is not about the people who were there. It is about the identity you formed in that instant. In one awkward moment, the mind concluded, I am someone who embarrasses myself. I am someone who cannot be trusted in front of others. I am the awkward one, and once the identity locks in, the replay is used to reinforce it. But identities are not truth. They are decisions. They are choices the mind makes in moments of vulnerability. Just because you decided, in a flash of shame, that you are the one who always embarrasses themselves, does not mean that is who you are. It only means that is the real you keep choosing to play. And here is the secret. If the mind has the power to replay, it also has the power to record anew. The same projector that traps you can free you. But first, you must see the trap for what it is, a loop, not a life sentence. The crowd has forgotten, the moment is gone, the stage is empty. Only the projector is still running, and when you finally stop pressing play, the film burns out and the loop ends. Here's the truth. Most people never realize. Nobody is watching you as closely as you imagine. You think the crowd remembers your mistake. You believe they are still laughing, still replaying it in their minds. But the reality is simple. They aren't. Human, they carry their own burdens, their own regrets, their own embarrassing moments that echo louder than yours ever could. The joke that made you burn with shame, it vanished from their memory in seconds. The silence that felt eternal to you, it was a flicker in their day. What stayed alive was not their judgment. It was your attachment. We live with the illusion of the spotlight, a false belief that all eyes are on us, that every move is being judged, that every slip is magnified. But the spotlight is not on you. The spotlight is in you. It is your own awareness projecting a beam of shame on a moment no one else even recalls. Think about it. The person who saw you stumble in that meeting, they were too busy worrying about their own performance to memorize yours. The stranger who heard your awkward words, they forgot before they got home. The audience that you imagined still laughing, they turned the page the moment the room emptied. And yet you carried it forward. You held it tight. You decided it mattered more than it did. You kept watering a seed that no one else even planted. This is the great illusion of embarrassment, the belief that others are still holding on to you, when in fact, they've already let go. The truth is both humbling and liberating. And if nobody else is replaying the scene, why are you? The universe doesn't chain you to moments, you do. And the moment you stop believing that the crowd is watching, the stage dissolves. The pressure fades. The embarrassment no longer has an audience because you stopped playing the role. When you recognize that the crowd has forgotten, you are free to forget too. And in that forgetting, you reclaim your power. Even when the crowd forgets, even when the world moves on, your body doesn't. The body is a library, and every emotional moment becomes a book on its shelves. That time you stumbled over your words, that silence when nobody laughed at your joke, your body filed them away under one title: embarrassment. And here's the catch. The body does not keep time the way the mind does. To your body, yesterday and 10 years ago feel the same. The moment you recall the memory, the chemistry of shame floods your system. Your face warms, your heartbeat quickens, your stomach tightens. Not because the world is judging you now, but because your body is responding, as though it still is. This is why you can sit alone in your room years later and suddenly feel that same sting. The nervous system doesn't know it's a replay. It thinks it's happening live. But here lies your power. If the body can rehearse the pain, it can also rehearse the release. If it can practice shame, it can also practice freedom. The nervous system can be reprogrammed. The emotional code can be rewritten. Every time you breathe with awareness, you send a new signal. Every time you choose calm instead of panic, you carve a new path in the circuitry. Every time you remind yourself, that moment is gone. You are teaching the body that the emergency has ended. Slowly, the grip loosens. The knot unravels, the fire fades. Quantum manifestation is not only about creating new realities in the outer world. It is about collapsing the old realities that live within. And when you stop feeding energy to the memory of embarrassment, you collapse it. It no longer holds form. It dissolves back into possibility. Yes, your body remembers. But you are not a prisoner of its memory. You are the author of its next chapter. And with intention, awareness, and practice, you can teach your body a new truth, that you are safe, that you are free, that the moment has passed. The body can be trained to release the echo of embarrassment. And when it does, the silence that remains is peace. Embarrassment doesn't stop at a memory. If you hold on to it long enough, it grows into something larger, an identity. You no longer see yourself as someone who had an awkward moment. You begin to believe you are an awkward person. One slip becomes a label, one silence becomes a story, one mistake becomes a mask you wear in every room you walk in thinking, "What if I embarrass myself again?" And that thought alone creates the very fear you hope to avoid. This is how identities are born. In fragile moments where the mind draws conclusions too quickly. In that moment of shame, your inner voice whispered, "I am clumsy. I am not good with people. I am the one who always messes up." And because the body felt it so strongly, the mind accepted it as truth. But here's what the quantum field reveals. Identity is not fixed. Identity is frequency. It is the signal you keep broadcasting with your thoughts, your feelings, your self-perception. And just like a frequency, it can be tuned. If embarrassment has programmed you into the awkward one, then you can reprogram yourself into the confident one. If shame has written the line, "I am not enough," you can erase it and write, "I am worthy, I am stable, I am free." The key is not to fight the old identity, but to stop energizing it. Every time you repeat the story of your humiliation, every time you relive the memory, you are feeding it. You are polishing the mirror of shame. But if you choose to shift, if you decide to focus on a different self-image, the old one begins to collapse. Imagine a film projector with two reels. One reel shows you stumbling, failing, blushing, being laughed at. The other reel shows you standing strong, speaking clearly, moving with ease. Both reels exist. The question is, which one are you playing? Identity is choice, and every moment you live is a chance to choose again. You are not chained to the role embarrassment assigned you. You can step off that stage, tear off that costume, and walk into a new role written by your own hand. The moment you stop saying, "I am awkward," and begin saying, "I am becoming confident," you shift the frequency, and in that shift, the field responds. Life mirrors the new. You are not the embarrassment you remember. You are the awareness choosing what to remember next. In quantum physics, there is a principle called The observer effect. It reveals that the very act of observing something changes it. The moment you look at a particle, the moment you give it attention, it collapses into a specific form. Without observation, it remains in pure possibility. Now, think about your embarrassment, the awkward word, the stumble, the silence. In reality, it was a passing event. For everyone else, it dissolved back into possibility the moment it ended. But for you, it became solid. Why? Because you kept observing it. Each time you remember, you collapse it again. Each time you replay it, you make it real again. Each time you shine the spotlight of your mind on that moment, you call it back from the past. This is the true power of your attention. What you choose to look at is what takes form. If you choose to look at the memory of shame, shame takes form. If you choose to look at confidence, confidence takes form. Both exist in the field of possibility, but only the one you observe will shape your reality. Embarrassment survives not because it is eternal, but because you keep feeding it the energy of your observation. Without you watching, it cannot breathe. Without you remembering, it cannot live. Without your attention, it fades like mist under sunlight. The observer effect shows us a secret. You are not a victim of memory. You decide what collapses into reality. You decide what film is running on the projector. And when you withdraw your observation from the reel of shame, it flickers, it fades, it dies. But when you turn your gaze to a new possibility, a self that speaks clearly, that moves gracefully, that stands without shrinking, that identity begins to collapse into form instead. It becomes the real. It becomes the lived. You are not trapped in the memory. You are trapped in your observation of it. And the moment you shift your focus, you shift your world. Shame feels heavy, but at its core, it is just energy. It's not a curse stamped on your soul, not a permanent stain on your story. It is simply emotion moving through your body, a surge of heat in your face, a quickening in your heartbeat, a twisting in your stomach. But here's the mistake we make. We believe that energy defines us. We say, I am embarrassed. I am ashamed. And the moment we say, I am, we fuse identity with sensation. We forget that the feeling is temporary, while the I is eternal. Think about it differently. That burning in your chest when you recall a mistake, that is energy rising, waiting to be directed. You can let it collapse you into silence, or you can redirect it into strength. The same fire that makes you blush can also make you glow. The same pulse that tightens your voice can also fuel your power. Every master speaker, every confident leader, every person you've admired in public has felt the same sensations. Their body reacts just like yours. The difference is that they don't call it shame. They call it fuel. They ride the current instead of resisting it. Energy is neutral. It becomes shame only when filtered through memory and judgment, without the story of I embarrassed myself. The sensation is just energy, moving, rising, ready to be used. Quantum manifestation is not about destroying energy, it is about transforming it. Embarrassment becomes excitement. Nervousness becomes aliveness. Shame becomes fire in the voice. The current does not disappear. It is redirected. The next time your body remembers and the wave of heat rises, Pause, don't collapse into the old story. Breathe, feel it without naming it. Tell yourself, this is not shame. This is energy, and I can choose what it becomes. When you learn to hold that energy without shrinking, it will begin to change shape. The very same current that once silenced you will empower you. The same wave that once burned you will light you up. Shame is not who you are. It is only energy, and once you know that, you are no longer a victim of it. You are its master. One moment becomes a loop, and the loop becomes a prison. The scene plays out in your head again and again. The stumble, the silence, the awkward laugh. Each replay feels smaller than the last, yet sharper, like a thorn that keeps cutting in the same place. But here's the secret. The loop only runs if you press play. And pressing play is not always. It happens in whispers, in the quiet before sleep, in the pause between conversations, in the silence after someone mentions your name. Without realizing it, you rewind, replay, and relive. So how do you break it? You interrupt the pattern. Every time the memory surfaces, you choose a new response. Instead of tightening, instead of saying, "Why did I do that?" you say, "That moment is gone." Instead of polishing the mirror of shame, you put it down. At first, the loop will fight back. The mind will want to run the old film because it is familiar. The body will want to rehearse the old feelings because they are practiced. But if you stay aware, if you keep interrupting the replay, the cycle begins to weaken. Think of it like a track worn into the ground. Every time you replay the memory, you walk the same path, making it deeper. But the moment you stop walking it, grass begins to grow back. The imprint softens, the track disappears. The brain works the same way. Neural pathways are strengthened by repetition, but they are also rewired by new choices. Each time you shift your focus away from embarrassment and toward a new image of yourself, you are creating a fresh pathway. At first, it feels unnatural, but with practice, it becomes automatic. Breaking the loop does not mean erasing the past. It means refusing to relive it. It means teaching your mind and body that scene is over, that role is finished, that chapter is closed. The loop only has power if you feed it. The moment you stop pressing play, the projector goes dark. And in that silence, you can choose a new reel to run. The loop of embarrassment cannot survive without a story. It is not just the memory of the moment that hurts you, it is the meaning you attach to it. You didn't just stumble over words. You decided it meant you were clumsy. You didn't just face silence. You decided it meant you were unworthy. You didn't just make a mistake. You decided it meant you always. That story is the weight you carry. But here's the truth. Stories are chosen, not carved in stone. And if you had the power to choose one story, you also have the power to choose another. Think of the same moment, the silence after your words, the awkward laugh, the stumble in public. One story says, "I embarrassed myself. Everyone must think I'm a fool." Another story says, "I was brave enough to stand there. I dared to speak. I dared to try." The moment is the same, but the meaning changes everything. The universe responds not to the events of your past, but to the vibration of your present. If you keep telling the story of humiliation, you radiate humiliation. If you begin telling the story of courage, you radiate courage. And life mirrors back what you send. Choosing a new story does not mean pretending the past never happened. It means reclaiming your role as the author. You take the pen back from shame and write something different. Instead of saying, "I am the one who embarrasses myself," say, "I am the one who rises even when it's uncomfortable." Instead of saying, "I always make mistakes," say, "I am learning to express myself with power." Instead of saying, "They must still be laughing," say, "Nobody remembers, and I refuse to remember in chains." Every time the old story surfaces, you rewrite it. At first, the old words will feel louder, but with repetition, the new script begins to take hold. The body starts to believe it, the mind starts to trust it, and the field begins to echo it. You are not bound by the story you once chose. You are free to choose again. And when you do, the past no longer defines you. It becomes fuel for a stronger identity. Embarrassment feels absolute, as if it is the only truth. But what if the weight you feel is not from the event itself, but from the lens you are looking through? Perspective is everything. From one angle, the silence after your words means rejection. From another angle, it means people were simply thinking. From one angle, the stumble means weakness. From another angle, it means you were moving quickly, daring boldly, reaching further than your comfort zone. The event does not change, but your interpretation reshapes its perspective. Is the difference between shame and strength. It is the difference between a prison and a lesson. And here's what most people never realize. Perspective is a choice. Imagine standing above the scene of your embarrassment as if you were watching it from a higher floor of a building. Down below, you see your younger self tripping, speaking awkwardly, blushing. But from above, you also see the faces of the people around you, distracted, lost in their own thoughts, carrying their own insecurities. Suddenly, the weight shifts. You realize nobody is thinking of you as deeply as you believed. You realize the event was small, almost invisible in the vastness of time. When you shift your perspective, you shrink the memory, and in truth, it was never as large as it felt. Life itself is a matter of lenses. If you look through the lens of failure, you find evidence everywhere. If you look through the lens of growth, the same events become proof of your courage. If you look through the lens of shame, you see yourself as broken. If you look through the lens of compassion, you see yourself as learning. Quantum manifestation begins with perspective. The reality you experience is filtered through the lens you choose to wear. And when you put down the lens of embarrassment and lift the lens of self-compassion, the entire story changes. The crowd didn't judge you as harshly as you judged yourself. The moment wasn't as eternal as you imagined. And the truth is, you were never defined by that instant. You were always bigger than it. Change the lens, and the reflection disappears. What once felt like a mirror of shame becomes a window into growth. And through that window, you see not the old you, but the new self waiting to emerge. Embarrassment feeds on one illusion, the idea that you must be perfect. Somewhere along the way, you were taught that mistakes mean weakness, that flaws mean failure, that stumbling means you don't belong. And so, when you tripped, when you misspoke, when you froze, your mind screamed, "I have failed." But here is the truth that dissolves shame. Perfection is a myth. No one lives without errors. No one speaks without slips. No one moves through life without moments of awkwardness. The difference is not between those who stumble and those who don't. The difference is between those who rise and those who stay down. The people you admire, the confident speakers, the leaders, the ones who command respect, they have all faced embarrassment. They have all made mistakes in public, but they never let those moments define them. They understood that a stumble is not an ending. It is part of the dance. When you let go of perfection, you let go of fear. You no longer demand from yourself the impossible. You accept that mistakes are not proof of failure. They are evidence of growth. The myth of perfection keeps you polishing the mirror of shame, trying to erase every flaw, but mirrors only reflect what you believe. When you accept your humanity, when you embrace imperfection as part of your design, the mirror no longer shows shame. It shows strength. You are not here to be flawless. You are here to be free. And freedom begins the moment you stop demanding perfection and start embracing authenticity. Embarrassment is not a life sentence. It is not who you are. It is not a curse written into your destiny. It is a shadow that lives only when you feed it with attention. The truth is simple. The crowd has forgotten. The world has moved on. The only one still holding the mirror is you, and you don't need to polish it anymore. You can set it down, you can walk away. You can choose a new reflection, a new story, a new identity. You are bigger than that moment. You are greater than that memory. You are stronger than the shame you've been rehearsing. And from this moment on, you don't have to replay it again. So the choice is yours. Keep polishing the mirror of embarrassment, or shatter it. Step through the glass and claim the freedom waiting on the other side. And if you are ready, if you feel the shift even now as you listen, I want you to take one step further. Don't let this be another video you watch and forget. Take action. Breathe deeply. Forgive yourself for the moment you've been replaying. And write in the comments right now, I release the old story. I choose freedom. Let that be your declaration. Let that be your new vibration. And if this message spoke to you, share it. Someone you know is still polishing their own mirror of shame, and your courage could set them free. Subscribe for more videos like this, because this is just the beginning of your journey into the self. You were always meant to remember. The mirror is gone. The illusion is broken. And the real you, the confident, unshakable, radiant you, is already here.